If you've ever pulled off at one of those lonely Appalachian rest stops in the middle of the night, you know that feeling. The cold air, the deafening quiet, the way the woods seem to breathe just past the tree line. Tonight, we're diving into 10 true Appalachian rest stop horror stories, from vanishing truckers and echoing footsteps to locked bathroom stalls that flush on their own. And worse. If you enjoy stories like these, your like helps this video reach more horror fans like you. Tell me where you're watching from. Every viewer is part of my horror family, and I want to know where you're tuning in. And don't forget, comment which story creeped you out the most, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your subscribe gives huge support to this channel and helps us keep bringing you terrifying stories. Let's get scared. I was hauling a short load down I-77, headed from Charleston to Charlotte. Nothing unusual, just another overnight run to make a few extra bucks before the weekend. I'd been driving trucks for 6 years, mostly long haul, but this route was familiar, almost boring. It was around 2 a.m. when I decided to pull into a rest stop just south of the Virginia-North Carolina border. You know the kind. Single row of parking spots for trucks and cars, a flickering sodium lamp buzzing overhead, and a brick restroom building that always smells like mildew no matter what season it is. The place was dead quiet. Only one other car in the lot, a silver Nissan Altima, parked way down at the end. No lights on. Could have been someone catching some sleep or just abandoned. Hard to tell. I parked my truck closer to the restroom building, under one of the few working lights. Put it in park, locked the doors out of habit, grabbed my flashlight and headed for the restroom, my boots crunching on the gravel. I remember thinking how dead the air felt that night. Cool, but not crisp. No bugs, no wind, no sounds of traffic in the distance. Just that humming light and the hum of my own engine cooling off. The restroom was exactly what you'd expect. Cold tile, a faint scent of bleach mixed with piss, and a busted hand dryer that wheezed like a dying animal. I was in and out in under 2 minutes, but when I came back out, something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. The parking lot looked the same. That same car was still parked down at the end. My truck was right where I left it. But something gnawed at me, like walking into your house and realizing a chair's been moved 2 inches to the left. I reached for the door handle of my cab, and it opened. Now I'm positive I locked it. It's muscle memory at this point. The second I killed the engine, I hit the lock. I even remember the beep of the auto lock as I walked away. But now, the door swung open like it had been waiting for me. I stood there for a second, flashlight still in hand, trying to rationalize it. Maybe I thought I locked it and didn't. Maybe the remote fob didn't work this time. Could be a glitch. But when I climbed up into the cab, my stomach dropped. The driver's seatbelt was buckled. Not draped over the seat. Not caught behind something. Buckled. I hadn't buckled it when I got out. Why would I? That means someone had to sit in my seat and click it into place. My first thought, theft. Someone got in looking for money or gear. But nothing was missing. My duffel bag was right where I left it. Glove box closed, CB untouched. Even the dash cam was still recording, little red light blinking steadily, but I felt watched. Not paranoid, not jumpy, watched. I slammed the door shut and scanned the parking lot through the windshield. Nothing. No one at the other car. No movement near the building. Just me and this awful buzzing in my ears that I now realize wasn't coming from the lights. It was coming from inside the cab. A high-pitched, barely there whine, like interference. I unbuckled the seatbelt, turned the ignition, and shifted into drive faster than I probably should have. That sound, whatever it was, stopped the second the engine roared to life. I pulled out of the lot and merged back onto I-77. Told myself I was being stupid, sleep-deprived. I'd stop at the next pilot or Sheets, get some coffee, reset my brain. But a few miles later, I glanced in the rearview mirror and nearly veered off the road. There was something in the back seat. Now, this is where I need to clarify something. My truck is a sleeper cab. There's space back there, a bunk, storage, and enough room to stretch out if you're on a long haul. I keep it clean. Nothing back there except my sleeping bag and a pair of work boots. But in that mirror, for just a split second, I saw what looked like someone sitting upright, like they were strapped into a jump seat that doesn't even exist. Their face wasn't visible, just the outline of a head and shoulders, motionless. I swerved into the shoulder and slammed the brakes, heart racing, palms slick on the wheel. I didn't even check traffic. Just threw open the door and jumped out, flashlight already up, yanking the cab door wide. Empty. The back was completely empty. No signs of anyone. My sleeping bag was still rolled up. My boots were unmoved. Nothing out of place. But the air in there, it smelled wrong. Like old copper and damp wood. Like a basement that hadn't seen light in years. I stood there for a long moment, light shaking in my hand, breathing heavy. Eventually, I climbed back in and just sat there, engine idling. I told myself it was a trick of the light. Maybe my eyes were playing games with me. I hadn't slept much in the past 2 days. Maybe I was just cracking a little. I left the cab light on as I pulled back onto the interstate. For the next 20 miles, I kept glancing at that rearview mirror like a damn lunatic. Nothing. But when I finally pulled off again, this time to a well-lit travel plaza near Fancy Gap, I checked the dash cam footage. I don't usually review it unless there's a wreck or incident. But I had to know if I'd imagined everything. I queued up the clip from the rest stop. It showed exactly what it should have. Me pulling in, getting out, locking the doors. You could even hear the beep. Then, about 30 seconds later, the driver's door unlocks. Click. No one's visible. No shadows. No figure. But the door handle jiggles slightly and the light inside turns on. Then, slowly, the driver's door opens. No one gets in. The camera keeps rolling. For about 10 seconds, nothing happens. Then, the seat belt pulls itself across the seat and clicks into the buckle. I stared at that footage for a long time, tried to find a logical explanation, some mechanical failure, static charge, vibration, anything. But it wasn't just that, it was what came next. As I stood there in the video, returning from the restroom, the passenger side mirror caught a faint reflection. A face. Not mine. Not someone outside. A face inside. The cab, just behind the driver's seat. Pale, wide-eyed, mouth slightly open, like it was breathing down my neck. But when I opened the door, it vanished. Frame by frame. It was there, and then it wasn't. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't stop again till sunrise. I kept all the lights on, turned up the radio, called my brother and kept him on the phone for nearly an hour, talking about nothing just to hear a familiar voice. The next day, I got the truck checked, top to bottom. Locks, cameras, electrical, all clean. No sign of tampering, no signs of forced entry. No reason for any of it. I've driven that route maybe a dozen times since, but I never stop at that rest stop anymore. I can't. Because here's the part that still messes with my head. 2 weeks later, I got a call from another driver I know, Chris Morales. Said he pulled into that same rest stop around the same time of night. Found his cab door wide open, nothing stolen, but the seatbelt on his side, buckled. After Chris told me about his experience at that same rest stop, I didn't say much, just listened, nodding, letting him vent. He was shaken, really shaken, and Chris isn't the kind of guy to spook easily. He's been in wrecks, seen meth heads bang on his windows in the middle of the night, even had a guy try to break into his trailer once. But this? It rattled him deeper. When he mentioned the seatbelt being buckled, my stomach turned over. He hadn't heard my story. I hadn't told anyone outside my brother, and even he thought I was just overtired. But now I knew. I wasn't the only one. Still, I told myself I was done with it. I deleted the dash cam footage, blocked out the memory. It was a one-time thing, a freak coincidence. Or maybe, just maybe, it was something mechanical. Maybe the locks were glitching and the camera picked up a reflection. Maybe we'd both just had a moment. But I couldn't stop looking in my mirrors. Every night after that, whenever I took a run through that part of Virginia, I'd feel it again. That presence. Like something was just outside my vision, just beyond the glass. Close enough to fog it with its breath. Then, about a month later, I got an email from a local news site a friend had forwarded me. Headline said, "Unidentified remains found in rest area along I-77 near Carroll County." My heart started racing. I opened the article and read every word like I was memorizing it for a test. They'd found bones, human bones, buried behind the old rest stop building near the tree line. Looked like they'd been there for years, maybe decades. A maintenance crew found them while digging up a drainage line. No ID, no cause of death listed. But what really got me was the last line of the article. Virginia State Police confirmed the location was previously connected to a 1992 missing persons case involving a truck driver who was last seen at that same rest stop. His truck was later discovered 2 exits south. Doors locked, cargo intact, driver's seatbelt buckled. I felt ice crawl up my spine, over 30 years ago, and they'd never found him. Until now. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the footage I'd deleted, the shape in the mirror, the way the seatbelt clicked shut with no one in the cab. What if it was him, a ghost, a residual presence? I don't know. I don't even believe in that stuff. Not really. But when something follows you across state lines, when it leaves fingerprints on your life, belief doesn't matter anymore. It's just reality now. And reality was about to get worse. 2 weeks after that article dropped, I got routed for a late delivery back to Bluefield. I was driving empty on the return and had time to kill, so I stopped at a trucker diner I used to hit on that route, the Iron Fork. I hadn't been there in years. Same greasy eggs, same burnt coffee, same tired-looking waitress named Charlene who somehow still remembered my name. We chatted a bit, nothing deep. Then I mentioned the rest stop, just casually, just to see. Her whole face changed. "You mean the one off exit 46? She asked. "Yeah." Charlene shook her head and leaned in. "They found bones there recently, but folks around here knew something was wrong with that place long before that." I asked her what she meant. She said drivers used to say it was cursed, that if you stopped there alone, something might get in your rig without opening the door, that sometimes people would come back from the restroom and find wet footprints on their floor mats, or worse, muddy handprints on the inside of the windshield. "Did anyone ever die there?" I asked, playing dumb. She looked away. "A few, that driver in the 90s, another in '03. A kid in 2011 OD'd in his back seat, they said. But his car was locked from the outside. Cops never figured that out." I left that diner with my hands shaking. I wasn't supposed to be on that route again. My dispatcher had me running west through Ohio the next week. But just to be sure, I called and double-checked. Guess what? Last-minute cancellation. New assignment. Midnight. Run back down I-77 and guess which exit I'd be passing around 2 a.m. I told myself I wouldn't stop. Wouldn't even slow down. But then my check engine light came on. I'm not lying. It literally came on just as I passed the sign for the rest area, 1 mile. The truck sputtered. Not bad, but enough to scare me. I hadn't had engine problems in months, and before I knew it, I was pulling in. Against every instinct in my body, the lot was empty. No cars, no trucks. Just me and that same goddamn buzzing light. I sat there, for a moment, engine still running, hand on the gear shift. Every muscle telling me to go, but I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to look. I turned off the engine, locked the doors, and I waited. I counted out 60 seconds in my head. Nothing. I took a deep breath, then turned the dome light on, climbed into the back, inspected every inch of the sleeper berth, checked under the mattress, opened all my storage bins, empty. Then I looked up at the rear-view camera display. It was wired into a thermal sensor, a leftover upgrade from the previous owner, and on that screen behind me was a heat signature. A human shape sitting upright, motionless, right where the jump seat would be. If my truck had one. I spun around. Nothing. The air was freezing now, my breath visible. That coppery smell again. The sound of static buzzing through the CB even though it was off. And then, just as suddenly, the truck rocked. Hard, like something slammed into the back. I jumped up, heart hammering. Grabbed the flashlight, fumbled with the door handle, but the locks wouldn't budge. Click, 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 nothing. Then I heard it, from the back, a whisper. Seatbelt. I turned around slowly, and the belt on the passenger side, click, buckled itself. Started screaming, kicking the door, slamming my shoulder into it until finally, it gave way, and I spilled out onto the gravel. I ran. Didn't care if I left the truck. Didn't care about the cargo. I ran like something was crawling up my spine. When I got far enough away to look back, the cab light was on, and someone was sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead, not moving, just waiting. It took hours to get the truck towed. When the mechanic checked it, the battery was drained like it had been left running all night. But I know what I saw. And here's the worst part. I traded that truck in a month later. Got a newer model. Different rig. Different route. I haven't seen the seatbelt buckle itself again. But every now and then, I still hear the click in my sleep. And when I wake up, gasping and drenched in sweat, my truck keys are in the passenger seat. Even if I left them in my jacket pocket, they're just sitting there, like someone drove all night while I was dreaming, and parked it right where they wanted to be. There's a rest area just a few miles shy of the Tennessee state line off I-40, out past Newport. If you've ever run long haul through that stretch, you probably know the one I'm talking about, right past mile marker 443, tucked between the foothills and the interstate like an afterthought. It's the kind of place that feels too quiet, even when there's traffic. I'd stopped there a handful of times over the years, usually just for a quick bathroom break or to stretch my legs, but never for long. This happened last summer, July. The air had that swampy thickness that makes your shirt stick to your back before you even step out of the truck. I was hauling a flatbed load out of Asheville, heading toward Nashville. Middle of a 2-day run, just coming off a grueling detour around construction that ate up an hour of daylight and all of my patience. I was tired, cranky, and fighting, the kind of caffeine headache that felt like a railroad spike behind my right eye. So when I saw the blue rest area sign glowing in the dark, I figured I'd pull off. It was close to 3 a.m., and I was desperate for something cold, maybe a quick nap if I could trust the lot. The rest area was damn near empty. Just one other rig parked off to the far right, trailer dark, no sign of movement. The only light came from a few flickering lamp posts and the glow inside the vending machine alcove. I parked, killed the engine, and stepped out into the thick night air. Everything was still, too still. No chirping bugs, no sound of traffic from the highway. Just the hum of those ancient overhead lights. Inside the small brick structure were the usual vending machines lined up under a buzzing fluorescent tube, snacks in one, drinks in the other, both looking like they hadn't been serviced in a decade. There was a vending coffee station too, but it was taped up and dead. Figures. I walked up to the soda machine, stuck in a crumpled dollar bill, and watched the machine suck it in and do nothing. No menu screen, no noise. Just ate the dollar. Smacked the side of the machine, cursed under my breath, and turned to walk away. But then behind me, the drink machine lit up. Not just the screen. The entire thing flickered to life. Every selection glowing like someone had just activated it. And then, clunk, a bottle dropped into the tray below. I froze. I hadn't touched anything. I turned around, slowly. The lights were steady now, humming like they'd been on the whole time. The button next to the Coke label was still lit. The machine sat there innocently like it hadn't just done something it shouldn't be able to do. I reached down and grabbed the bottle without really thinking. Just habit. It was warm. That struck me right away. Not room temp, warm. Like it had been sitting out in the sun all day. And it felt off. Lighter than it should have. I turned it over in my hand. The cap was twisted, not sealed. just barely sitting on top, and inside, only half full. I held it up to the light. The liquid was dark, but not Coke dark, more reddish, and it didn't fizz or bubble, just sloshed, like flat syrup. I felt a wave of something cold creep up my back. I set it down on the trash can and backed away slowly, a few feet, then a few more. Then the machine clicked again. Another bottle dropped. Same spot, same eerie silence before and after. The machine didn't display any message, no thank you, no balance. Just another half-empty Coke, this one with what looked like a piece of something floating in it. I didn't get closer. I couldn't. I turned and walked briskly back to my truck. Locked the doors. Fired up the engine like the noise would ground. For a few minutes, I just sat there with the AC blasting, staring into the rearview mirror at the vending area. Nothing moved. No one came out. But as I shifted into reverse, my headlights swept across the edge of the rest building, and that's when I saw it. Someone standing just behind the corner of the wall. A pale face, barely visible past the edge, watching. They weren't there before. I was sure of it. I didn't wait to see what they wanted. I hit the gas and pulled back onto the ramp, my hands shaking on the wheel. Now, here's where things start getting harder to explain. I drove another 20 minutes before stopping at a pilot. Big, well-lit, full of other drivers. I needed to splash water on my face and reset. The whole Coke thing was gnawing at me, like I'd brushed up against something I shouldn't have. I went inside, used the bathroom, got a proper cold drink, and came back out feeling halfway normal, again. But when I got back to my truck, that same Coke bottle was sitting in the cup holder, the one from the rest stop, warm, half full, cap twisted but not sealed. I hadn't brought it. I know that. I left it on the trash can. I stared at it like it was a live grenade. I didn't touch it. Just sat there watching it, waiting for it to do something. It didn't. It just sat there. Quiet. But as I stared, I noticed something about the label. It was faded, almost like it had been printed years ago. The font was slightly off. The logo looked wrong. Not the modern one, more like the design from the early 2000s. I finally worked up the nerve to grab it with a napkin and chuck it into a nearby trash bin outside the truck. I stood there watching, like I expected it to crawl back out. Then I climbed back into the cab, locked the doors, and drove the rest of the night without stopping again. But it didn't stop there. The next morning, after delivering my load, I checked my sleeper. Tucked in the corner just behind my duffel bag was another bottle. Same Coke, half full, same twisted cap. Only this one had something inside. Pressed against the inside of the bottle, floating like it had been sealed in there for years, was a crumpled scrap of faded paper. I didn't open it. I wouldn't open it. I drove straight to a truck wash and made them clean the entire rig top to bottom. Vacuumed, pressure washed, wiped down every inch. Tossed the bottle into a gas station dumpster on the way. I told myself I'd imagined it. That maybe I picked up the first bottle without thinking and forgot. That maybe someone was messing with me. But a week later, I got a call from another driver in my company, Mike Jensen. Older guy, been around since the CB days. He sounded rattled. He said, "You ever stop at that rest area near the Tennessee line?" I hesitated. "Why?" He paused, then said, "I swear to God something's wrong with that place. I got a Coke out of the machine and it was already open. Half full. Tasted like metal and something else. And when I tossed it, it showed up in my rig again the next morning. I didn't know what to say. My mouth just went dry." He continued. "I poured it out this time, but there was something in it, man. Like a tooth. Or a rock. I don't know. But it wasn't right." We didn't talk much after that. Neither of us wanted to go further. But here's the part I can't shake. Yesterday I got back from a delivery and opened my cab. Right there in the cup holder was another Coke bottle, only this time the cap was missing completely, and the label? There was writing scratched into it, one word: drink. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I'd locked up the rig, even after I tossed the Coke bottle into a dumpster 5 blocks away from the yard. I couldn't stop pacing around my apartment, glancing at the windows like something might be looking back. I kept thinking, what if I hadn't seen the label? What if I'd taken a sip that first night? That thought kept looping like static in my head. Because something told me that's what it wanted. I didn't go out the next day. Turned down 2 dispatch calls. I just sat at home, curtains drawn, trying to ignore the sick feeling in my gut. But around dusk, I couldn't help myself. I went back to the truck just to check. It was parked at the company lot, row 6. Sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in that eerie orange-purple mix that always makes everything feel older, quieter. The cab was locked. But as I got closer, I could see something on the dashboard. From 10 feet away, I already knew. Another Coke bottle. Warm, beaded with condensation even though it hadn't come from a cooler. I unlocked the door slowly, climbed up, careful not to touch it. My heart was hammering in my ears. This one had no cap. The top was just open, and the label had been peeled halfway off. The inside of the bottle was cloudy. Not just flat soda, murky, like someone had shaken dirt into it, or ash. Floating at the bottom was something small and off-white, looked like a baby tooth, and tucked just beneath the bottle on the dash was a folded receipt. I picked it up with 2 fingers and carefully opened it. It was printed from a vending machine. I recognized the layout, but the date? August 17, 1996, nearly 3 decades ago. Item, Coca-Cola 20 O's change returned. 0.0. Customer, paid in fully, felt cold all over. The receipt crinkled in my hand as I stood there, trying to breathe slow. The lot was quiet. My truck was the only one in that row now. I was about to climb out when I noticed something new in the cab, something I know wasn't there before. On the passenger seat, where no one ever sits, was an old Polaroid photo, faded, bent in one corner. Picked it up. It showed a young man, maybe late 20s, dark hair, wiry build, standing next to a different truck, one of those boxy late 80s cabs. He had a Coke bottle in his hand, smiling, written on the bottom in blue ink. Mitch, last trip before Nashville. The name didn't mean anything to me at first, not until I remembered something, that news. Clipping my dispatcher sent out months ago. One of those watch your stops, keep alert emails that most of us delete. It had been a cold case reopened by Tennessee Highway Patrol. Disappearance of a trucker named Mitch Darnell, last seen at a rest stop near the Tennessee border. His truck had been found abandoned. No signs of foul play. Just a half-finished bottle of Coke in the cup holder. That was 30 years ago. And the last place he was seen, the same rest area where that Coke machine spit out the first bottle for me. I don't know what I was thinking, but I drove back. There, I know it was stupid. But something in me needed to see it again. Needed to confirm it was real. That the machine wasn't just some fluke or prank or malfunction. It was close to midnight when I pulled in. No other vehicles this time. Just my headlights cutting across the overgrown hedges and cracked pavement. The lights in the vending alcove were already on, glowing like they were waiting for me. I parked, killed the engine, and stepped out slowly. The air smelled like old pennies, metallic, dry. Not fresh night air, not road diesel or truck stop grime, just metal. I approached the machine with my stomach in knots. As I got close, the screen flickered, buzzed, then the buttons lit up. I didn't press anything, but it clicked, and a Coke dropped into the tray. This one wasn't warm, it was cold. Ice cold. Beads of condensation ran down the sides. Cap sealed, label clean, and printed across the neck where the expiration date usually is, was a timestamp. 17. AMI looked at my phone. 2016, AM own minute away. I didn't touch the bottle. I backed away, slowly, and then the vending machine started dispensing again. Clunk, another bottle, and another. 3, 4, 5. Each one dropped and rolled, some spilling out of the tray and onto the ground. They were all Coke, all sealed, all with the same timestamp. 12:17 a.m. It was like the machine was trying to feed something, or someone. Turned to run back to the truck. That's when I saw the man, standing under the trees just behind the building, half in shadow, half caught in the red glow of a security light. He was holding a Coke bottle, smiling, and it was the exact same man from the Polaroid Mitch. But his face wasn't right, too still, too tight, like the skin had shrunk over bone. He didn't move, just watched. I scrambled back into my truck, heart punching my ribs, locked the doors, fumbled for the ignition. The truck didn't start. Dashboard lit up, but no crank. Just static. Over the CB, static and a faint whispering voice repeating the same word. Drink. I slammed my fist into the dash, yelled, prayed. Finally, after the third try, the engine turned over. I threw it into reverse and peeled out of that lot, tearing, gravel as I went. In the rear view, the vending machine lights dimmed, then blinked out completely, like none of it had ever been there. I told my dispatcher I was sick, took a week off. Every day since, I've checked my cab, every morning, every evening. So far, no more bottles. But sometimes, when the AC kicks on and I smell something faintly metallic, I still think I'm not alone in the cab. And last night, I went to toss out a fast food bag at a Love's in Kentucky. Opened the trash can lid and saw a single Coke bottle sitting inside. Cap off, label, gone, just one word scratched into the plastic with what looked like a nail. Next. I'd been on the road for about 6 hours straight, hauling lumber from Roanoke to Bristol, and my eyes were starting to do that thing where the lines on the road blur into snakes. It was a Thursday night, early spring around mid-April, and the temperature had dropped quicker than I expected. My fingers were cold even with the heater running, and that creeping stiffness was starting to work its way up the back of my neck. I was somewhere near Pulaski County when I saw the blue and white sign for a rest area, just a few miles up ahead. I figured I'd pull in, hit the restroom, stretch my legs, maybe splash some water on my face and reset before the last leg. My bladder was screaming, and my head was heavy, but I wasn't tired enough to justify pulling off for sleep. The rest area was one of those older ones, small parking lot, a half-circle loop with maybe 8 truck spaces and a dozen for cars. Just 2 other rigs were there when I pulled in, both parked under the amber sodium lights, quiet and dark. No movement, no engines running. I eased into a spot closer to the building and killed the engine. The only sound was the ticking of my cooling engine and a steady rustle of wind blowing through the nearby trees. It was quiet out there, the kind of quiet that makes you hyper-aware of your own breathing, the kind that makes even normal things feel a little off. The building itself was one of those standard state-issued restrooms, single level, red brick, with that weird angular roof like it was designed in the 70s and no one ever thought to update it. The lights inside were on, but one of the fluorescents above the women's entrance was flickering hard, casting strobe-like flashes across the pavement. I remember thinking it looked like something out of a horror movie, but I also remember laughing to myself, just tired, mind playing tricks, that's all it was. I walked past the vending machines, both dark, out of order signs taped to the glass, and stepped into the men's room. The second I crossed the threshold, I knew something wasn't right. The bow. Air inside was still. No hum from the ventilation fan, no dripping faucet, no echo of footsteps. Just cold, heavy silence like the whole building had sucked in a breath and never let it out. All the stall doors were shut. Every single one. I stopped just past the entrance, hand still near the door frame, and stared at the row of identical, closed doors along the back wall. 5 in total. Nothing moved. No sound of someone shifting inside. No shuffling. No cough. No shoes under the dividers. Just 5 shut doors, perfectly still. The urinals were empty. Clean even. Too clean. Like they'd been scrubbed and abandoned all at once. I waited a few beats, figuring someone might make a sound. Clear their throat. Tap a shoe, but nothing happened, so I started checking. First stall, empty. Toilet pristine. No smell. No paper in the bowl. just that faint scent of bleach and tile mildew. Second, same. Third, same. When I opened the fourth stall door, the hinge squealed loud enough to make me jump. But again, nothing inside, just more silence. Fifth stall, empty. I stood there, holding the fifth stall door open, suddenly aware that my breathing had gotten faster. My heart, too. I didn't know why. Nothing was happening. There was no reason for it. But every instinct I had told me something was wrong in that room. I stepped back, washed my hands. Splashing water on my face did little to shake the creeping tension in my chest. I glanced once more at the stalls, still shut, all 5. But I'd just opened them. I turned around and headed for the door, telling myself to stop being ridiculous. I must have been so fogged from driving that I didn't even notice them swinging closed again. As I pushed the door open, I glanced over my shoulder. Only one stall door was shut. Just one. The others were wide open, exactly how I'd left them. Froze, half in and half out of the doorway, my hand still on the metal push bar. I hadn't heard anything close. I hadn't felt a breeze. And those doors don't just swing shut on their own. They're heavy. Old hinges. You have to push them. But there, it was. Fourth stall, closed. I stepped back in. Called out, "Hello?" No answer. I walked back toward the stalls slowly. The sound of my boots on the tile was suddenly too loud, like the whole building was listening. I crouched down to check. For feet, nothing. I stood, heartbeat thumping in my ears, reached out, touched the handle. It was warm. Every other surface in that bathroom had been cold. The porcelain, the metal, the tile. But the stall handle was warm to the touch, like someone had just been gripping it. I slowly pushed it open. The stall was empty. No one there, except now. The stall next to it, the fifth, was shut. I hadn't touched that one since I opened it the first time, and I would have heard it close. I backed up 1 foot at a time. That was enough for me. I turned and walked, fast, out of the restroom. The door slammed shut behind me with a metallic clap that echoed way too loud in the quiet lot. Back in my truck, I locked the doors, sat in the cab with the engine off, just breathing, trying to slow my pulse. I told myself again, just tired. Maybe one of the other drivers had slipped in while I had my back turned. Maybe I didn't hear them. Maybe it was just timing, coincidence. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd walked into something that didn't want to be seen, something that didn't make sound because it didn't have to. I didn't stop again until I reached the customer lot in Bristol. That was 2 nights ago. Since then, things have started to get strange. I woke up this morning to use the restroom at a TA in Johnson City, stepped into the building and froze. Every stall door, shut. Not just in the men's room, in the women's too. I only saw it because the cleaning crew had the doors propped open. I glanced in as I passed. All shut, just like before. Then I walked into the men's room. Same deal. And when I turned to leave, only one door was shut. The fourth stall again. I checked it. Nothing inside. But scratched into the back of the door, just above the latch, was a phrase that hadn't been there when I walked. "In we see you." Not spray paint. Fresh scratches. Deep enough that I ran my finger through the grooves. I left the truck stop without even filling my tank. Now I'm writing this in the cab, pulled off on the side of a frontage road outside Kingsport, because about 20 minutes ago I glanced in my side mirror and saw something move behind me. Just a flicker, like someone ducked between my trailer and the rear tires. I got out, flashlight in hand, walked the full length of the trailer. Nothing there. But when I got back in, the bathroom stall scent was in my cab, that faint mix of bleach and old tile, and something else beneath it, like wet cement, like something had followed me. And now, as I sit here writing this, I can hear a noise coming from behind the curtain that separates the sleeper. It's soft. Metal squeaking over and over, like an old hinge, like a door, swinging shut. The sound coming from the sleeper wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Creak. Pause. Creak. Like someone was opening and closing a door slowly, over and over. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, keys in the ignition, cab light still off, staring at the thick curtain that hung behind me. I don't even know how long I sat there before I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. I knew damn well no one had climbed, and I hadn't stopped since the last truck stop. The doors had stayed locked. I was alone. Had to be. I reached up with a shaky hand and flicked the cab light on. The bulb buzzed to life, casting a pale orange wash over the interior. The noise stopped. No more creaking, just silence. I stared at the curtain. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Eventually, I forced myself to climb out of the seat and step into the narrow space in front of the sleeper. The curtain swayed gently like it had been disturbed. I grabbed it fast, jerked it open in one go. Nothing. The sleeper was empty, but it smelled strong now. That bleach and cement scent, like I'd opened a freshly mopped stall in some old cinder block gas station bathroom. I checked the corners, pulled the mattress up, even opened my storage bins, just to be sure. I was practically shaking with every movement. Still, nothing. I was about to shut the curtain again when I noticed something scratched into the back wall of the sleeper. Down low. Just above the carpet line, stall 4. The letters were gouged in, fresh, curling splinters of particle board still clung to the edges. I hadn't seen that before. I sat down hard on the edge of the bunk, trying to make sense of it all. Something was following me. Not a person, not something physical, something tied to that damn restroom. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized. This wasn't just one weird moment. I'd started noticing things a while back. Random toilet flushes in empty truck stops. Stall. Doors swinging open on their own. Once I'd walked into a bathroom in Missouri and found every mirror fogged over, even though the room was ice cold. Another time I heard whispering from the vents. I'd always shrugged it off, blamed my imagination. Late nights, long miles, but now I couldn't ignore it. This thing, whatever it was, had latched onto me, and it wasn't done. I drove straight through the rest of the night. Didn't stop. No food, no bathroom. Just windshield and asphalt until sunrise. I pulled into a Walmart lot around 6 a.m., bleary-eyed and dehydrated. I parked under a camera. Big floodlight nearby. Plenty of people around. It felt safe enough. I climbed into the back to finally catch some sleep. That's when I saw it. Taped to the inside of my sleeper window, barely visible through the tint, was a scrap of white paper. Looked like a receipt. I peeled it off. It wasn't from a store. It was printed on thermal paper like a receipt, but all it said in block letters was, "You left the door open." My hands started trembling. I checked the sleeper door. It was locked. Had been all night. But then I noticed the curtain behind the driver's seat again, pulled slightly shut. I knew I'd left it open. I yanked it aside. There, on the driver's seat, was a square of folded toilet paper, perfectly placed, balanced in the center of the seat like someone had set it there deliberately. I didn't touch it. I drove straight to a self-service truck wash and spent $45 scrubbing every inch of the cab. Then I drove to a different company yard and switched trucks. Told dispatch mine was making a weird grinding noise and wouldn't shift right. They parked it for inspection. I figured I was in the clear. New truck, fresh start. But that night, my first night in the new rig, I stopped at a Love's just outside Knoxville. I hesitated before using the restroom, but I had to go. Had no choice. I walked in. 4 stalls, first 3. Open, last one, shut. Of course, I didn't check it. I couldn't. I used the urinal, washed my hands, and turned to leave. And just as I pushed the door open, I glanced back. Now all the stalls were shut. All 4. and etched into the mirror above the sinks, like someone had fogged it with their breath and scratched with a finger. Occupied. I've been driving this new truck for 4 days now, it doesn't matter. I've seen the signs at every stop. Flickering lights, creaking stall doors, whispers, scratches in the tile. 3 nights ago, I found a used paper towel rolled into a tight ball sitting on my driver's seat. Last night, the sound of a toilet flush woke me from sleep. I haven't used a public restroom since. I piss in a jug. I wash at Fuel Island sinks, but it's getting closer, more insistent, and I think I know what it wants. It doesn't want to scare me. It wants me to come back. To that same rest area, the one where it started. I can't explain how I know, but it's like it's calling me. Like there's something unfinished, and I keep thinking, what if I went back? What if I opened that 4th stall again? What would I find now? I'm parked right outside the exit ramp. The rest area is 2 minutes away, and I have this sick feeling that if I don't go tonight, it'll come for me anyway. But not in a stall, not in a restroom. Here, in my truck, where there's nowhere to run. And as I write this, I swear to God, I just heard the sound again. Metal hinge, slow, soft, creaking open. Only this time, it's coming from the passenger side door. I don't always sleep in my car, but sometimes I do when I'm on the road alone and I can't justify a motel. That night, I'd been driving west through North Carolina after visiting my cousin outside of Winston-Salem. I'd had every intention of making it to a buddy's place in Knoxville before crashing. But a late start, rain-slick roads, and a creeping fatigue had other plans. It was just after 2 a.m. when I pulled off onto one of those little gravel cutouts along the side of the highway, barely big enough for 2 vehicles. No signage, no lights, just a shoulder between the woods and the road. I'd passed it a few times on earlier trips and remembered it as a spot truckers sometimes used when the bigger rest areas were full. I figured it'd do for a few hours of shut-eye. I reclined the seat, cracked the window an inch for air, and tucked my hoodie behind my head as a makeshift pillow. The air was cool and damp, early spring mountain kind of cool, with that earthy smell you get near thick woods after a full day of rain. The only sounds were the occasional hiss of a car passing on the wet asphalt and the ticking of my cooling engine. I was out within minutes. At least I think I was. What woke me wasn't a sound, at least not at first. It was that weird shift in pressure, like when someone enters a quiet room behind you and the air subtly changes. A tightness in my chest. Then the tapping started. Just 2 taps. Sharp. Deliberate. Right by my left ear. Tap, tap. I shot up. My first instinct was that it was a trooper doing a welfare check, or maybe someone pulling over to ask for help. But when I really looked, there was no one there. Just darkness. No lights. No headlights in the rear view. No sound of footsteps. My heart was hammering in my ears. Then I saw it. On the driver's side window, right where I'd heard. The tapping was the faint outline of a face. Not a full face, just the imprint of one. A greasy forehead, the bridge of a nose, and lips pressed up against the glass. Smeared into the fogged-up condensation like someone had been watching me sleep. Close. Real close. I sat frozen for maybe 10 seconds, hand hovering over the ignition. My mouth was bone dry. Then I hit the lock button, turned the key, and flipped on the headlights in one jerky motion. My high beams lit up the trees ahead, illuminating the soaked gravel lot and the 2-lane road beyond. Nobody. I threw it into drive and peeled out, tires skidding a little as I jerked back onto the highway. My pulse didn't settle until I saw the green glow of the next interstate exit sign. I drove the rest of the night, didn't stop again until sunrise. Later that morning, parked in a crowded McDonald's lot, I finally got out and looked at the glass in daylight. I didn't dream it. The smear was still there. Forehead, nose, lips. Dead center on the window. Like someone had leaned in, stared at me through the glass, and just watched. I cleaned it off with a wad of napkins, trying to ignore the way my fingers shook. I didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to tell anyone. I just chalked it up to some freak. Maybe a drugged-out hitchhiker or a bored trucker messing with me. But that night, when I parked outside my apartment back in Knoxville, I caught something that made my stomach knot. As I walked around the front of my car to go inside, I noticed the faintest smudge on the passenger window. Another face. Not as clear this time, barely a blur in the condensation from the nighttime chill. But it was there, pressed from the inside. I didn't sleep much that night. Kept every light on in the apartment. Woke up twice in a cold sweat, convinced I'd heard someone knocking. I tried to move on with my week, told myself I'd been tired, that maybe it was all just misinterpreted condensation, dirty glass, brain fog. But 3 days later I found something that tore that logic apart. I was filling up at a gas station near campus when I noticed something stuck under my windshield wiper. It was a torn slip of notebook paper, folded into a triangle. I opened it. No words, no writing, just a rough pencil drawing of a face, oval-shaped, no hair. The features were just wrong. The eyes were too far apart. The mouth was wide and flat. The expression wasn't angry or sad. It was blank, but whoever drew it had pressed hard. The lines gouged into the paper, and at the bottom, in tiny block letters, was a single phrase. I saw you sleep. I stood there, staring at it, heart pounding so loud I didn't hear the pump click off. A guy in the next lane had to shout to get my attention. I threw the paper into the trash bin and drove straight home, looking over my shoulder the whole way. That night I checked every window, locked every door, left the hallway light on. I even set a glass bottle on the windowsill in my bedroom as a makeshift alarm. Figured if it got knocked over, I'd hear it. I didn't sleep in my bed. I sat on the couch with a baseball bat in, my lap and my phone in my hand. And for a while, nothing happened, until just after 3 a.m. I heard a click. Faint, metallic, like a latch being tried. Then footsteps on the gravel outside my window. Crunch. Crunch, crunch. They stopped beneath my bedroom window. I held my breath. Silence. Then, tap. Tap. Same rhythm. Same sound. But this time, on my bedroom window. I stood up slowly, bat in hand, every nerve in my body screaming. The bottle hadn't moved. I took 2 careful steps toward the window, heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. I pulled the curtain back just a sliver, and there it was, the face, pressed against the glass. But not like before, not smeared. It was looking at me, eyes locked on mine, skin pale, mouth slightly open, lips dry and cracked like paper. The face didn't blink, didn't move, just stood there, staring. I dropped the curtain and stumbled back. By the time I called 911 and grabbed the bat again, the face was gone. The officers showed up 10 minutes later. They walked the yard, checked the alley, took my statement. No signs of forced entry, probably a transient, one of them said. It happens more than people think. I asked if they could dust the window for prints. The officer gave me a polite smile. Sir, it rained earlier, the glass is clean. I looked again, he was right, no smear, no condensation, no trace, but I know what I saw. And the worst part, that face, it wasn't anyone I recognized, but it looked familiar. Not in a way you'd recognize someone from a party or from college. Familiar like you've seen it when you shouldn't. Have like something that doesn't belong to this side of the glass. That was 3 nights ago. Last night I stayed at a friend's place across town. Didn't say why, just told him my heater was busted and I needed to crash. I left my car parked outside. This morning, when I came out to leave, I found a brand new smudge on the rear windshield. Not a face this time, just fingertips. 5 of them. Spread wide, pressed hard, like something had crawled up the back of the car, gotten close and watched. I cleaned it again, drove straight to a detailing place and paid extra for a full exterior and interior wash. But when I got home, I checked the inside of the back window again. New smear, smaller, closer to the edge, like it was getting bolder, like it was waiting for me to fall asleep again. And now, Sitting here, typing this at 2:51 a.m., I keep catching movement out of the corner of my eye, reflections in the dark TV screen, flickers in the hallway mirror. I haven't blinked in 10 minutes because I swear to God if I do, I'll open my eyes and see it looking back through the glass. I must have drifted off. That's the part that still gets me. 1 second I was wide awake on the couch, staring at the black TV screen, waiting to catch even the faintest flicker of movement. And the next, I snapped upright, heart already pounding like it had been racing before I woke up. 26 a.m. The room was dark, and the TV's reflective surface stared back at me like a void. No lights, no sound. Just the hum of the fridge in the kitchen and my own breath, shaky and shallow. But what hit me immediately, before my brain even caught up, was the smell. Glass cleaner. Not the cheap kind either. The ammonia-heavy, streak-free kind you get at auto detailing shops. That weirdly sweet chemical sting that clings to your nose. And it wasn't coming from my bathroom, or the kitchen. It was coming from the couch. I reached behind me slowly, fingertips brushing the throw pillow I always leave tucked in the corner. It was damp. I stood fast, snapped the lamp on. There, on the inside of my living room window, pressed low, right near the base, was a fresh smear, like someone had wiped it from the inside, one long streak, almost like a forearm dragging downward, clearing a foggy view. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about the car anymore. Whatever this thing was, it had found a way in. I barely remember calling my friend Tyler, but he picked up on the third ring. I didn't give him details, just said I needed to crash at his place again. This time I took an Uber and left the car behind. I wasn't about to drive anywhere knowing that thing might be riding in the back seat. Tyler let me in, groggy and barefoot in basketball shorts. "You look like hell, dude." "Didn't sleep, you smell like Windex." I didn't respond. He led me to the guest room and tossed me some blankets. I locked the door behind me, closed the blinds, checked the closet and under the bed like a paranoid teenager, then curled up on the floor instead of the mattress. But sleep didn't come. Because at 4:12 a.m. I heard it. Tap, tap, not on a window. This time on the door. 2 soft knocks, spaced just like the ones from the car. I held my breath. Pressed my ear against the hardwood. Nothing. I waited maybe 15 minutes before finally cracking the door open inch by inch. The hallway was empty. Lights off. Tyler's room door still shut. But at the end of the hall, across from the bathroom, the front door was open, not wide, just ajar. I crept forward, every nerve in my body lit up. On the inside of the glass storm door, just above the deadbolt, a single greasy forehead print. No nose, no lips this time, just the top of a head, like it had been watching from above, like it had bent down. That morning I packed a bag and drove 3 hours to my sister's place in Asheville. I didn't even tell her I was coming until I was halfway there. I didn't want to bring it with me, didn't want to expose her to whatever this was, but I had nowhere else to go. I left the car parked a block away and walked the rest of the way on foot, eyes on every reflective surface, every parked car, every window. Nothing followed. Not, yet for 2 nights it was quiet. I stayed in the spare room with the blinds closed and kept the mirror in the bathroom covered with a towel. I even disabled the rear-facing camera on my phone. I was starting to think maybe the distance had worked, that maybe it couldn't travel far. But then on the third morning, my niece came into the kitchen and asked, "Uncle Mason, who was the man looking in my window last night?" She said it just like that. Calm, almost curious. I felt the blood leave my face. I asked her to draw him. She shrugged and grabbed a purple marker, drew an oval with 2 wide eyes and a long flat mouth. "He was standing sideways like this," she said, tilting her head at an unnatural angle. "He didn't blink." I left that afternoon, didn't say goodbye, just packed the car and drove. Ended up at a trucker motel off Route 25 somewhere between the state line and Cherokee National Forest. Small bare-bones place, cash only, no cameras. That night I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the bed with the lights on, every window covered. With blankets I duct taped to the frame, thought I was safe. Until I went into the bathroom just after 2 a.m. to splash water on my face and caught sight of the mirror. There was writing on it, not drawn, pressed into the fog from the inside out, like someone had stood on the other side of the glass and written with their finger 4 words: I like watching you. I left the motel in a frenzy, didn't pack. Just grabbed my keys and wallet and bolted, leaving the door wide open behind me. I drove without direction, just needing to put miles between me and whatever it was. But every gas station I stopped at, I'd catch it again. A flicker in the reflection of a freezer door, a smudge on the inside of a bathroom mirror, the unmistakable scent of glass cleaner trailing behind me like a shadow. Every reflective surface had become its territory. Not just windows. Now mirrors, TV screens, phone screens, sunglasses, anything it could look through. That's when it hit me. It didn't care where I was. It only needed one thing: a surface, a pane of glass, a mirrored finish, a shine, something it could press against, something it could tap on. I'm writing this now from an old service station I found near the Georgia line. I broke every mirror, smashed the windows, covered the rear view and side mirrors with towels. My phone screen is cracked and face down. The monitor on this old desktop has been shut off. I've been typing blind, just trying to get this out, trying to warn someone. Because earlier tonight, I noticed the display case behind the register, a glass door I hadn't seen before, and on the inside of it, right in the center, there's a brand new forehead smear, still wet. I know it's close now. I know it knows I'm writing this. The taps are getting louder, more urgent. And the screen, even though it's off, I swear I can see my reflection. Only, it's not doing what I'm doing. It's smiling. I've been hauling freight up and down the Appalachians for close to 15 years, and in that time I've seen plenty that could make a greenhorn spook easy. Creepy mountain fog, old folks standing barefoot by the road at 3 a.m., strange, lights dipping through the trees. But you learn to shrug that stuff off. You've got to, or the road'll drive you crazy. But there's one night I still can't shake. It was early spring last year, late March maybe. I was cutting through West Virginia on Route 52, somewhere between Iger and Welch. Real twisty, 2-lane stretch, one of those back road arteries that runs along old coal towns and dips in and out of radio signal. Cell coverage drops to nothing about halfway through, which is probably why I started paying more attention to my surroundings. It had been raining most of the afternoon. Not a downpour, just that steady, windshield-soaking kind of rain that hums against the cab roof and makes you feel heavier than you are. I'd been driving since before noon, and it was pushing 10 when I decided to stop and stretch. I spotted a little rest area tucked behind a thicket of pine trees. Not one of the big government-run ones, more like a gravel pull-off with a busted vending machine and a cinder-block restroom building. The kind of place that probably hadn't seen real maintenance since the 90s. I pulled the rig into a wide spot near the tree line and shut it down. Everything was wet, the trees dripping, the pavement glistening under the dull glow of 2 orange floodlights mounted on crooked poles. The rain had slowed to a mist and the air smelled like pine needles and diesel. I stepped out, stretched my legs and took a slow walk toward the restroom building, dodging puddles. That's when I saw it, just off to the left, halfway hidden, in the shadow of a half-collapsed wooden awning, a payphone. It was mounted to a rusted metal frame bolted into the concrete, the receiver dangling by its frayed cord. The front panel was cracked, half the buttons sun-bleached to white. The little window where it used to show the cost of a call was so fogged up you couldn't read a thing. The whole thing looked like it had been dead for decades. I slowed as I passed it, curiosity more than anything. You don't see payphones anymore, especially not out here. I wondered if it had worked during the Clinton administration. I was maybe 3 steps past it when it rang. Ing. I froze. The sound was loud, sharp, cutting through the silence like a knife. Not a digital tone either. That old mechanical, Bell chime like the kind you'd hear in a 70s movie. 2 short rings, then a pause, then again. Rying. Rying. I turned and just stared at it. No lights. No signs of power. Yet it kept ringing. The mist seemed heavier now, collecting in the air like smoke. I glanced around. The place was still dead quiet. No other trucks, no cars, no footsteps. Just trees and fog and that phone ringing like it. Knew I was the only one there to answer. After about 5 rings, it stopped. Silence again. I stood there, waiting. Then, one more ring. Just one, and then nothing. I don't know what came over me, but I walked back and picked it up. The moment I did, I felt it. Cold. Like metal in the freezer cold. My fingertips burned where they touched the receiver. I lifted it slowly to my ear, expecting static, maybe the wind through a busted wire. But what I heard was breathing. Heavy. Slow. Inhale. Long exhale. No words. No background noise. Just breath. Not the kind of breathing you hear when someone's panicked or upset. This was calm, measured, like they had all the time in the world. I said, "Hello?" The breathing continued. I pulled the receiver away and stared at it like that would make it make more sense. Then I heard it, through the phone, still inches from my ear. My name, soft, drawn out. Travis. I froze. No one out here knew. My name? Hell, even if the phone somehow worked, I hadn't told a soul I was stopping at this place. I hadn't used my GPS. No texts. No CB callouts. I was off the grid. But that voice knew me. I put the phone back to my ear and said louder, "Who is this?" Nothing now, not even the breathing. Then came a click, a hard, mechanical one, and the line went dead. I stood there for a long time, rain misting on my shoulders, the phone hanging limp in my hand. That was when I noticed something else. On the concrete base of the payphone, there were wet footprints, bare feet, not shoe prints. Not boots, just 2 muddy, human-looking prints, one on each side of the phone post, like someone had been standing there while it rang. They hadn't been there when I walked up. I backed away, slowly, then turned and jogged toward my truck. Told myself it was just a weird old wiring glitch. Maybe the rain reconnected something and it rang on its own. Maybe some prankster with a radio scanner and too much time. But I couldn't explain the voice or the footprints. I climbed back into the cab, locked the doors, and sat behind the wheel with the engine off and the cab light on. I didn't move. I didn't even reach for the key. That's when I noticed something in the passenger seat. A slip of paper. It wasn't there before. I picked it up with trembling fingers. It was a torn piece of notebook paper, damp around the edges but dry in the center. And in the middle, written in dark pencil, were 4 words. "Don't answer next time." I felt the blood drain from my face. There was no one else around. No chance someone slipped into my locked cab. And even if they had, how the hell would they know what had just happened seconds earlier? I started the truck and drove out of there faster than I care to admit. I made it to a pilot station just outside of Bluefield and parked under the brightest lights I could find. I didn't sleep. I didn't even get out. I sat there, staring, at the side mirror, watching the fog roll past like it was searching for a way in. The next morning I told myself it was over. Just some backwoods weirdness. Maybe even a stress-induced hallucination. Long shifts, bad food, too much time alone on the road. My mind playing tricks. But later that week, something else happened. I was back on the road, different route this time, Kentucky side, heading west through Moorhead. I'd put the whole payphone thing behind me, until I stopped at a rest area and saw it again. Not the phone. The paper. Folded neatly on the concrete, outside the bathroom door. Same torn edge, same pencil, same handwriting. Don't answer next time. Only, this time, at the bottom, there was one more word. Soon. And as I looked up from the paper, my eyes landed on something across the lot, behind the tree line. A shape. Tall. Still. Just barely visible between the trunks. Too far to make out. A face, but close enough to see that it wasn't moving, not shifting, not swaying like the trees in the wind. It was just watching. And right as I turned to leave, right as I broke into a full sprint back to my truck, I heard a faint sound cut through the mist, from somewhere back behind the trees. Floored it out of that rest area, tires spitting gravel as I whipped the rig around and got back on the highway. I didn't check the mirrors, didn't even glance behind me until I was 5 miles down the road and surrounded by traffic again. Whatever that thing was, whatever was watching me, I wasn't going to give it a second chance to get closer. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling it had already found a way in. That second note, folded on the ground like it had been waiting for me, told me everything I didn't want to admit. This wasn't just some weird fluke with an old payphone, it was following me. I didn't stop again for the rest of the drive. Powered through until I hit Indiana, where I dropped my load and checked into a chain motel near Terre Haute. The place was clean, cheap, and most importantly, had no trees, no fog, no payphones. I locked the door, wedged a chair under the knob, and left the TV on all night. It didn't help. Around 2:45 a.m., the room phone rang. I hadn't given the front desk my name, hadn't used my real info on the sign-in sheet, but the phone rang anyway. I stared at it like it was a venomous snake coiled on the nightstand. It rang 3 times, then stopped. Silence. And then, under the door, a piece of paper slid in. I didn't move for a long time, just stared at it lying there like a trap. Eventually, I crept forward and nudged it with my foot. Same torn edge, same scrawled handwriting. You answered once. That's all it needs. I left the room before sunrise, didn't even check out. I tried going back to my normal runs, acting like everything was fine. I kept the radio on louder than usual. Took photos of every lot, every stop, every mile marker like I was documenting a trip for court. I stayed in lit truck plazas, avoided wooded rest stops, refused to pull off on any exit that didn't have at least 3 functioning gas pumps and a Taco Bell. But still, the ringing found me. Once in the middle of a Walmart parking lot, cell, phone dead, rig off, CB silent. I heard a payphone-style chime coming from inside the shipping container I was delivering to. No phone inside. Just an echo in that long, dragging breath I'd started to know by heart. Another time I found the payphone receiver. Just the plastic handle and coiled cord, lying on my driver's seat after stopping for fuel. Not the whole unit. Not even hooked to anything. Just the piece you'd hold to your ear. Clean, dry, still warm. The final straw came about a week ago, just outside Charleston. I was heading east on Route 60, pulling into a small diner lot I'd been to dozens of times. I needed a real meal. Something that didn't come in a bag or smell like fryer oil from 5 states away. I was halfway through my burger when I saw the payphone. It wasn't there before. Right next to the dumpster, half in shadow, bolted to the side of the building like it had always belonged there. The metal was rusted, the receiver hung limp. A small light above it flickered, and it started ringing, not once, not twice, but over and over with that slow, pulsing rhythm. Ring, ring, ring. Everyone else kept eating. No one turned. No one acknowledged it. I asked the waitress, "Hey, did you guys always have that phone?" She looked at me confused. "What phone?" I stood up, walked to the window and pointed. But it wasn't there anymore. Just a bare wall. No phone. No flickering light. Just me, standing there looking like I'd lost my damn mind. That night I drove until my eyes blurred. Pulled off near Fayetteville, West Virginia. Not far from where this all started. I didn't mean to stop there. Didn't even recognize the turnoff until I pulled into the gravel and saw it. The old cinder block restroom building. The broken vending machine. And next to it, under that same warped awning, the payphone. Exactly as it was before. Same cracks. Same fogged plastic. Same low mechanical hum, like it had a heartbeat. It wasn't ringing when I pulled up. But it didn't need to. I got out of the truck slowly, every part of me screaming to get back in, but I didn't. I walked to the phone, stared at it, picked up the receiver before it could ring. I didn't speak. Neither did the voice. Not at first. All I heard was breathing, then a low whisper, like wind through dead leaves. "Travis, you're still listening." I opened my mouth, but I didn't get a word out, because the voice kept going. It told me things, personal things, childhood memories I hadn't thought about in years, regrets I'd never told anyone, places I'd been, thoughts I'd had. It knew me, all of me. And as I listened, frozen, something moved in the woods behind the phone. A shape, tall, pale, featureless, stepped into the mist. No face. No eyes, just long limbs, swaying like it was made of smoke and sinew. It moved toward the light, stopped short of the clearing, tilted its head like it was listening, and the voice in the phone said, "You don't get to hang up." I dropped the receiver, but the line didn't go dead. The sound kept coming. The voice kept whispering, even lying on the ground, not connected to anything. The receiver kept speaking. I backed away slowly, then ran. I didn't look back until I was inside the truck, doors locked, engine roaring, and as I pulled away, headlights sweeping across the edge of the trees, I saw that thing standing where I had just been, holding the receiver against its head like it had picked up the call where I left off. It's been 4 days since then. Every time I try to sleep, I hear that ring, not just in my dreams, in parking garages, in gas station music, in CB interference. It's always the same tone, the same rhythm. And last night, I found a new note taped to the inside of my sleeper window. No paper this time. No pencil. Just etched into the glass was something sharp. Missed call. So if you ever pass through southern West Virginia, especially late at night in the rain, and you see one of those busted old payphones standing alone, out of place, don't pick it up, no matter how many times it rings. Because once you do, the line never really goes dead. I was somewhere along I-70, cutting across the Ohio stretch just past midnight, when I realized I'd been running on fumes for the last 30 miles. I hadn't seen another vehicle in at least 10, just long, dark lanes and that kind of misty drizzle that sticks to your windshield and smears every light into a watery halo. The GPS showed a 24-hour convenience stop about 7 miles up. One of those chain travel marts tucked between exits, fuel, snacks, bathroom, maybe a fast food, joint bolted to the side if you were lucky. I figured I'd gas up, grab a Red Bull, and keep pushing through to Indianapolis. When I rolled in, the lot was dead. No semis, no cars, no idling engines or flickering taillights. Just silence. You'd think a place like that would at least have one beat-up Corolla with fogged-up windows or a guy in a hoodie slumped behind the wheel waiting for someone inside. But there was nothing. Even the street lamps looked off, flickering like dying fireflies, casting just enough light to make the darkness feel deliberate. I pulled up to pump 3. Credit card reader was busted. Screen was frozen on some system error. Had to go inside to pay. The door chimed when I stepped in, high-pitched and tinny like every gas station in the Midwest. The lights overhead hummed with that cheap, buzzing fluorescent sound. I took maybe 5 steps in before I noticed something strange. There was no music, no radio, no hum of coolers or beep of scanners. The store was silent and empty, except for the cashier. He stood behind the counter, head down, flipping through a booklet of scratch-offs, maybe late 30s, shaggy brown hair. Thin in that way you can only get from either too much coffee or not enough sleep. I grabbed a couple of items off the shelves, water, trail mix, and a can of Monster, and approached the register. The guy didn't look up right away. Just kept scratching a ticket like he hadn't heard me. Then the door buzzer dinged again behind me. Ding, someone else walking in, I figured. But I didn't hear any footsteps. No shifting of shelves. No shoes on tile. I turned around. Nobody there. The door was closed. Parking lot still empty. Before I could say anything, the cashier finally looked up. His eyes were wide, startled, like he just realized I was standing in front of him. "You're the first customer we've had all night," he said, voice low, hoarse like he'd been smoking or not talking much. "Really?" I chuckled. "I figured this place stayed busy being 24/7 and all." He glanced past me toward the door. Ding, it went off again. He flinched this time. My stomach tightened. "I keep hearing that thing go off," I said, trying to sound casual. "But I don't see anyone coming in." The cashier didn't respond, just stared at the door a second too long before quickly scanning my items. His hands shook a little. "You got a restroom?" I asked, partly just to stall, partly because I suddenly really needed to splash some water on my face. He pointed to the back right corner of the store. "Key's already in the knob," he muttered. I made my way past the drink coolers, weaving through the aisles. The place smelled faintly of burned popcorn and that weird ammonia scent that always lingers near mop sinks. The bathroom door was old, wooden, and painted beige. It creaked when I opened it. It was one of those single-person deals, just a toilet, a sink, and a broken paper towel dispenser with a stack of napkins sitting on top. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to shake off the weirdness. I kept telling myself it was just late. I was tired. Rain makes everything feel creepy. Maybe the buzzer was faulty. But as I turned to dry my hands, I heard it. Ding. Again. Faint. Muffled through the wall, but definitely the front door buzzer. Waited. Listened for footsteps. Nothing. I opened the bathroom door slowly and peered out. Aisles still empty. Lights still buzzing. I could see the cashier at the counter. Stiff now, standing perfectly still. His head turned toward something off. To the left, near the freezer section, I stepped out. "Everything okay?" I called. He didn't respond. He was watching something I couldn't see. Then he turned his head slightly, just enough to glance at me, and whispered, almost apologetically, "I think it follows the sound." My blood went cold. "What?" Before he could say more, the buzzer dinged again. But this time, it didn't stop. It kept going. Ding, 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 ding. Over and over, like someone was walking in again and again without ever stepping out. Then the lights above the soda fountain flickered and went out. The buzzer finally stopped. And in that sudden silence, I heard the sound of footsteps, wet, deliberate, slow, moving somewhere behind the aisles. I backed toward the counter. The cashier was pale, breathing shallow, his eyes darting toward the far left corner where the chip racks were. "I've been hearing it for 3 nights now," he said quietly. "Always starts with one ring, then more, then the lights go, then the crash." A shelf tipped over in the back. Neither of us moved. He looked at me, and for a split second, he wasn't just scared. He looked guilty. Like he'd seen this play out before. Like he knew what came next. "Look," I whispered. "Just tell me how to get out of here." He licked his lips. "You can't run if it sees you. You have to stay still. Don't look it in the eyes. Don't..." His voice caught. He was staring behind me, at something I hadn't seen yet. I turned slowly and froze. There was a figure standing at the far end of the candy aisle, not moving, not blinking, just watching. It was tall, maybe 6.5 feet, thin in a warped kind of way, like its limbs didn't fit quite right. It was pale, almost gray, with skin that looked damp, shiny under the flickering fluorescence. But the worst part? The face. There wasn't one. Just the suggestion of features, sunken shadows where eyes should have been, and a long, narrow ridge that might have once been a nose. It tilted its head. The buzzer dinged once, and the lights in the front of the store cut out completely. I backed up toward the register. My heart was slamming so hard I could hear it in my ears. "I'm getting out," I whispered to the cashier. He didn't answer. I turned. He was gone. No sound, no movement. Just an empty space where he'd been standing 2 seconds ago. And then I heard it, right behind me, breathing, slow, wet, right at my neck. I turned, and everything went black. I woke up on the floor, face down on cold tile. At first I thought I'd passed out. Maybe low blood sugar or something. I blinked, groggy, my cheek pressed against something sticky. A piece of stale candy had melted under my face. My head was pounding. My arms were sore, like I'd been laying in the same position for hours. But the store, it was quiet again. Too quiet. The lights were back on, dim and buzzing like always. The front door was shut. The aisles were upright. No broken shelves, no knocked-over displays. No sign that anything had happened at all. I sat up slowly, bracing against the counter. The cashier was gone. Not just gone, like he'd never been there in the first place. His scratchers, the chair, even the pack of gum I'd paid for, all missing. The receipt, still in my pocket. Timestamp, 12:47 a.m. I looked at my phone. Battery nearly dead, but the time said 4:32 a.m. Almost 4 hours had passed. I stumbled to the front door and pushed it open. The parking lot was still empty. Not empty like quiet, empty like wrong. There were no tire marks, no puddles, not even the rain-slick shimmer I remembered. It was like someone had scrubbed the whole place with a giant eraser. Even my truck was gone. I spun around and went back, inside. The buzzer didn't go off. I grabbed the door frame and slammed the door again. No chime. I pushed it 3 more times. Nothing. It was dead. Like someone had turned off the part of the world that makes noise. Eventually, I found a phone. Behind the counter. One of those black wall-mounted landlines with the curly cord. No dial tone, just static. But I stayed on the line, and slowly, through the fuzz, I heard it again. Breathing. That same slow, heavy rhythm I'd heard when I was inches from that thing, in the candy aisle, but now it was coming through the phone. Then, a voice, whispering, "You're back too soon." My spine stiffened. I dropped the phone. It kept whispering. I didn't wait for more. I ran through the back hallway, past the employees only sign and into the storage room. Boxes, crates, empty soda, racks and a door marked exit with an emergency push bar. I slammed it open and spilled out into the rear lot. Just trees and blacktop behind the building, and parked by the dumpster was my truck. Lights off, no keys. Windows fogged over. I approached slowly, blood pounding in my ears. The driver's door was cracked open. Not all the way, just enough. Like someone had been sitting inside, watching. I opened it and peeked in. Everything was exactly how I left it, except for the passenger seat. Laid out there, flat and deliberate, was the pack of trail mix I'd bought, still sealed, still cold. But next to it, sitting perfectly upright in the cup holder, was a receipt. Not mine, different paper, no store name, just a handwritten message. Don't forget to pay next time. My stomach dropped. I got in anyway, slammed the door, locked it, tried the ignition, no keys. Of course. I searched the glove box under the mats, between the seats. Nothing, until I looked up. Dangling from the rearview mirror was the pay stub from the register and my keys, tied together with a frayed length of black phone cord. I started the truck and peeled out of that lot so fast I nearly ripped the bumper off on the curb. I drove until sunrise. I didn't stop once. Not for gas, not for food, not even to piss. I didn't breathe until I hit a familiar stretch of highway and saw other trucks again. Headlights, life, civilization. I pulled into a well-lit Flying J and parked between 2 18-wheelers. Sat there with the engine off, both hands still gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to the world. I thought it was over. Thought maybe I'd hallucinated the whole damn thing. Sleep deprivation, nerves, isolation. But then I saw the convenience store door open, and a man walked out. Shaggy brown hair, thin frame, eyes down. The same cashier. He didn't see me, just crossed the lot toward a rusted-out sedan. Got in, drove away. No headlights, no sound, like he wasn't really there. That was 2 days ago. Since then, I've stopped 4 times at different gas stations. All different brands, all in different states, and each time, there's a moment, right before I walk in, when the door chime sounds just a second too early, before I touch the handle, and when I look around, the parking lot's always empty, even if it was full a second ago, even if people were just walking in. They're gone. It's like the moment I step through that threshold, something else takes over, and it's waiting to see if I'll answer again. Because sometimes when I'm alone at the register, the cashier will look up slow, wide-eyed, and whisper, "You're the first customer we've had all night." And behind me, ding, 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 like it's just starting again. I've driven the stretch of I-40 between Knoxville and Asheville more times than I can count, mostly for work. I'm a regional rep for a packaging company, so I'm on the road 2 or 3 days a week hopping from plant to plant. I know the exits, the radio dead zones, where the cell signal dies in the hills and which rest stops are clean versus which ones you walk into holding your breath. This happened at one of the smaller rest areas, about 20 minutes west of Asheville. Tucked into the trees on a curve of the Blue Ridge, it's got that classic mid-90s state-maintained look. Gray brick, no vending machines, just 2 buildings, one for men, one for women, and a little janitor shack in between. It was a Thursday, evening late March. Cold mist had started moving in around sunset, clinging to the trees like cobwebs. I'd just finished a long meeting at a bottling plant near Waynesville, and I figured I'd pull off, use the restroom, stretch, maybe grab a granola bar from the glove box before the last hour home. The parking lot was empty. Not just quiet, empty. No semis, no tourists, no lone minivans idling with sleeping kids in the back. Just me, the crunch of gravel under my tires, and that thick quiet you only get in the mountains after dusk. I left the engine running, headlights on. Just a quick stop. The men's room was like most state ones, cool, tiled, smelled faintly of bleach and mildew, with a little too much echo. There were 2 urinals and a single stall in the back, painted that dull institutional blue. I always thought it was weird they only had one. The stall door was shut and locked. I didn't think anything of it at first, figured someone was in there. I used the urinal, washed my hands, checked my face in the mirror. That's when I realized something strange. No sounds. I mean, when someone's in a stall, you usually hear something. Shifting feet, toilet paper roll squeaking, the creak of the door. But there was nothing, just the hum of the overhead light and the sound of water swirling down the drain as I turned the faucet off. I dried my hands, still glancing at the stall in the mirror, and that's when the toilet flushed. Once, whoosh, then again, whoosh, then, without any pause, a 3rd time, whoosh. Each flush sounded exactly the same length, same pressure, too perfect. Like someone had pressed a button 3 times in a row, deliberate, mechanical. I froze. Still no footsteps. No paper tearing, no zipper, no cough, no motion. Just that stall, door locked, silent. Then I noticed something else. The floor under the stall completely clean, no shadow, no shoes. Nobody was in there. I turned toward the stall, heart thumping a little faster now. I took 2 slow steps forward, reached down to glance under the gap, just to make sure I wasn't seeing things wrong, and that's when I heard it. Creak. Behind me, I turned fast. Across the narrow hallway that led out of the bathroom was a small metal door. I'd passed it on the way in without really thinking. It was the janitor's closet. It had been open, not wide, but ajar, maybe a couple of inches, just long enough for me to catch the movement. Now it was swinging slowly shut. No sound of a latch, no click. Just the air and the damp swinging it closed like someone had just slipped through it. I stood there for a second that felt like a full minute. Then I backed out of the bathroom. Fast. Outside, the mist had thickened. My headlights cast 2 glowing tunnels into the trees, but the fog swallowed the light just a few feet past the hood. The engine hummed and my wipers swept in a slow rhythm. Thump, thump. I sat in the driver's seat with the door still open for a minute, hand on the wheel, listening. Nothing. Just that heavy silence. Eventually, I shut the door, put the truck in gear, and pulled out of the lot. I didn't tell anyone about it at first. Just chalked it up to a weird, creepy rest stop moment. Everybody has one. Maybe a busted automatic flusher. Maybe the janitor didn't want to be seen and slipped out the back. Maybe I just got myself worked up after a long day. But it stayed with me. That third flush, the clean floor, the silence, and that damn closet door. About a week later, I was on my way back through that same stretch. Late afternoon, just before dark. I didn't plan to stop, but traffic slowed to a crawl behind a truck accident, and I figured I'd pull off, kill 20 minutes, and walk around. This time, there were a few cars in the lot. A woman walking her dog, an old guy sitting on a bench by the soda machine. The bathroom smelled the same, bleach and old grout. The stall? Still locked, still silent. I didn't go near it, but I did check the janitor's closet. The door was closed tight, padlocked. I leaned in, curious, and noticed a sticker just above the handle. Faded and peeling. Looked like it had been there, while it read, staff access only, maintenance hours 6 p.m., 6 a.m., which was weird, because it was only 5:40. And yet when I looked again, the padlock was unlatched, just resting in the loop, like someone had just opened it. That night I did some digging. Nothing official, just forums, Reddit threads, old travel blogs. I searched everything I could think of. Asheville rest stop bathroom stall always locked, creepy Blue Ridge rest area, haunted I-40 bathrooms. Most of it was garbage, but one post caught my eye. From a user named Old Roadrunner 72, dated back in 2014. Anybody ever stop at the westbound I-40 rest area near Asheville? That one with the single locked stall? I used to do maintenance for the state back in the late 80s. Place always gave me the creeps. One time I found the stall door hanging wide open at 2 a.m. No one in the building. But water was running. And the janitor closet door was open. Never touched that place again. After that, there was one reply from someone with the username Nighthall. It only opens at night. 3 flushes means it sees you. I stared at that comment for a long time. Didn't sleep well. The next time I took that route, I didn't stop. Didn't even glance at the building as I passed. But I swear, just as I rounded the curve and dipped below the tree line, I saw the faint glow of the bathroom's overhead light flicker. And then the shadows shift, like someone was standing just inside the door, watching. I wasn't planning to stop there ever again. After reading that old forum thread, after hearing those flushes, after seeing that closet door swing shut, I told myself I was done with that place. Let someone else take the Blue Ridge route. I'd reroute through Johnson City even if it added 2 hours, but you know how it is. Life doesn't care about your promises. About a month later, I got pulled onto a last-minute job, urgent client, meeting in Black Mountain. Everything was closed by the time I left. It was raining hard, the same cold mountain mist that makes your wipers useless no matter how fast they sweep. And before I realized what I was doing, I was turning into that rest area again. It wasn't a decision. It was instinct, muscle memory, like the wheel just leaned. I pulled in slow. The lot was empty again. Not one car, not a single pair of headlights. Just me and the hiss of rain on concrete. The time on my dash read 12:08 a.m. The bathroom building sat in the fog like a bunker barely lit from within. A dull yellow glow leaked from the windows, like it hadn't been cleaned in decades, and for reasons I still don't understand, I grabbed my flashlight from the glove box and stepped out. It was like some part of me needed to know. Like that first night hadn't been the end of it, just the opening act. I made my way toward the men's room, water soaking into my boots, the air thick with the smell of pine and wet asphalt. The fluorescent above the doorway buzzed like a hornet caught in a bottle. Inside, it was quiet. Same urinals, same cracked tiles, same stall door, locked shut. And this time, I didn't even make it to the sink before I heard it. Whoosh, flush number 1. I froze. Whoosh. Flush 2, I backed up a step. Whoosh. 3. Then silence. But not the kind of silence you notice. The suffocating kind. The kind that builds pressure behind your ears. I turned to leave. That's when I heard the click behind me. The stall door unlocked. My breath caught. I didn't move. Not even a flinch. The latch made that heavy clack, like it had stuck in place for years and finally gave in. But the door didn't open. It just sat there, waiting. I backed up. Slow. That's when I heard something new. A shuffle. Like wet feet sliding across tile, inside the stall. Then, click, from behind me, the janitor's closet. I turned fast, just in time to see the door crack, open a couple of inches. This time I didn't freeze. I stepped toward it fast, swung it wide with one hand, flashlight up. Nothing. Just mops, a bucket, some cleaner bottles coated in dust. But something was off. The closet wasn't shallow like I remembered. It was deeper, like the back wall had been moved or removed entirely. A dark, square tunnel had been carved into the brick. Unlit. Crude. Like someone had chiseled it by hand and then abandoned it halfway through. The air coming from inside was cold. Not outdoors cold. Cellar cold. Smelled like mildew and iron. I stood there at the threshold for maybe 5 seconds. Then I heard a voice. Not behind me. Inside the tunnel. Just 2 words, maintenance hours. It didn't sound right. Not like a person. Not fully. It echoed wrong. Too slow. Too wet. I stepped back, and the light above me flickered and went out. I turned, flashlight darting, beam jittering against the wall tiles as I moved toward the bathroom door, but when I reached it, it was gone. Not closed. Gone. The wall was solid, seamless, like the doorway had never existed. I spun, heart hammering now. The stall door had opened, just a few inches, enough to see that the interior was pitch black. Darker than the rest of the room, like the light couldn't touch it. My flashlight began to dim. Batteries dying or something else. The beam thinned to a sputtering gray thread. Then from inside the stall, a single wet step. I turned back to the closet. It was still open. That tunnel was the only way left. I ducked in. The walls were damp brick, tight enough to scrape my shoulders. I moved slow, crouched, every breath loud in my ears. The passage turned twice, once left, then sharply right. Then it opened into a square concrete room, maybe 12 by 12 feet. I was under the bathroom. I could see the plumbing above, pipes, old water stains, a hanging light bulb with a pull chain that barely swayed. And in the center of the room, a mirror, tall, freestanding, framed in rusted metal. Its surface rippled like it was filled with water beneath the glass. I stepped closer, flashlight beam shaking across its warped reflection. There was no me in the mirror. Just the stall. Just the bathroom, like I was watching from inside the stall, looking out. Then flush once, twice, 3 times, and in the reflection, I saw myself walk into the bathroom, present-day me, standing at the sink, looking into the mirror from inside the stall. That's when it hit me. What I'd seen weeks ago, the stall being locked, always locked. It wasn't someone in there. It was something trapped, watching, mimicking, waiting for someone to get close enough, someone to step through, someone like me. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up in my truck, parked on the shoulder of the highway, middle of the day, sun out, engine off. No memory of driving, but there was mud on my boots, red clay, the kind you only get in the back hills of Appalachia, and sitting in my cup holder was a bathroom key, the kind with a long wooden handle, you know the kind, only it didn't belong to any place I'd been. Carved into the wood, handwritten, shaky, were the words, "In use." Since then, I've avoided that rest stop, but the stall shows up again, just there. Other stops, other states, always locked, always quiet, until I step inside and then flush, flush, flush. I've driven the southern highways enough times to know which rest stops feel safe and which ones give off that wrong kind of quiet. You know the kind I'm talking about. Too still, too far from the interstate hum, too tucked into the trees. But that night I was bone tired, and the caffeine buzz I'd been running on since Kentucky had long worn off. I crossed the Tennessee state line around midnight, trying to push through one more hour before stopping for sleep. But then I saw the blue sign. Rest area, 1 mile. No brainer. My eyes were burning, and I was starting to drift. It wasn't worth falling asleep behind the wheel. The rain had just tapered off into a soft mist, and the road was slick, reflecting every bit of light back up like glass. When I pulled into the lot, the first thing my headlights caught were the picnic tables off to the right, set back under a big wooden shelter like most of these places have. Someone was sitting there, not moving, not turning to look, just sitting. Figured it was a trucker or maybe someone else like me taking a break, letting their legs stretch before getting back on the road. No big deal, nothing weird about that. I pulled into the furthest parking space just past the main bathroom building. Killed the engine. The silence that followed was thick, just the tick-tick of my cooling engine and the faint rustle of wind through wet trees. My dome light came on when I opened the door, and I stepped out into the smell of rain-soaked pavement and pine. That's when I noticed something that stopped me cold. The picnic table was empty. I squinted into the mist. My truck's headlights were still on for a few more seconds in their auto shut-off cycle, so I could clearly see the concrete pad, the benches, the whole structure. No one. I felt a shiver go down my back that had nothing to do with the cold. I glanced around the lot. Empty. Not a single other vehicle, just mine. No big rigs, no sedans, not even a motorcycle. Just me. I walked over to where the table was. Call it curiosity, or just needing to prove to myself I wasn't losing it. I was sure I saw someone sitting there, but when I got closer I realized something else. No footprints. The ground was still soft from the rain. My boots squelched in the mud just walking across the grassy patch. But over by the table, pristine. No shoe prints, no drag marks, nothing. It was like whoever or whatever I saw wasn't really there. Still, I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was just more tired than I thought. Maybe my brain conjured a shadow that looked like a person. Maybe it was the weird way light bends through fog. That happens. I even chuckled to myself, embarrassed. I headed to the restrooms, figuring I'd splash cold water on my face, hit the urinal, and crash for 20 minutes in the truck before continuing. Inside, the lights were humming, that old yellow glow buzzing faintly. The place was cleaner than I expected, just that usual wet. Smell of mop water and faint air freshener. I did my thing, washed up, and stared at myself in the mirror a minute longer than I meant to. I looked tired. Real tired. Eyes sunken, scruff getting past 5 o'clock shadow. I needed real sleep. I headed back out, and that's when I saw it. Something had changed. The automatic door shut behind me, and I turned back toward my truck. Only now there were footprints. Not mine. I swear to God, not mine. They weren't spaced right. These prints were smaller, narrower, like someone barefoot had walked from the edge of the woods to the driver's side of my truck, and then just stopped. I froze. The prints didn't loop back. No return trail. Just a straight line from the dark tree line up to the door of my truck. I couldn't breathe. My keys were in my pocket, and I fumbled to grab them, eyes locked on that driver's side window. Nothing inside. I walked, slowly, quietly, the gravel crunching just a little under my boots. When I reached the truck, I scanned the window. No smudges, no sign of forced entry. Door still locked. I hit the unlock button, peeked inside. Empty. Still, I couldn't ignore the feeling in my gut. That clawing unease, like I was about to see something. I climbed in quick and locked the door behind me, still glancing around like something might crawl out from under the seat. Nothing did. I started the engine, planning to pull out of there fast. My headlights lit up the shelter one more time as I backed out. Someone was sitting there again. Same spot. Only this time, they turned to look at me. I can't even tell you what the face looked like, because there wasn't one. I swear on my life the figure was facing me, head tilted, watching, but it was just darkness. Like their face had been scrubbed clean, not bloody, not masked, just smooth and empty like a mannequin in silhouette. And then it stood. I gunned. The wheels kicked up gravel as I tore out of that lot, heart in my throat. I didn't look back until I was on the ramp merging back onto the highway. I half expected to see headlights behind me, or that faceless figure just standing in the middle of the road, but nothing followed. Still, I couldn't shake it. That whole stretch of highway felt off, like the trees were leaning in too close, like the shadows were watching. I turned on the radio just to drown out the thoughts. Static. All the way across the dial, nothing but static. Not even the usual late-night preachers or garbled country music. Just a steady, hissing wall of white noise that filled the cab like a presence. I turned it off. Just past mile marker 213, I spotted another rest area sign. Smaller. Looked like maybe it had been closed down. I wasn't stopping again, obviously, but as I passed, I slowed just enough to glance at the lot. No lights, but there was a truck parked there. Mine. I swear to God, my truck was sitting in that lot. Same make. Same dents on the tailgate. Same muddy streak along the passenger side from earlier. I was still driving. Still in my truck. But it was parked there. And as I passed, the cab light came on. Someone was sitting inside. And then, I didn't slam on the brakes. I didn't loop back around to double check. My gut told me if I did that, something worse than confusion or hallucination would greet me. So I just drove. Hands locked tight on the wheel. Eyes forward. Mind racing. That rest area, I knew I saw it. And I knew I saw myself. Sitting in the cab. How the hell does that make sense? I drove another 15 miles before pulling off at a BP station on the edge of a tiny town called Meadow Springs. The kind of town that's basically a single intersection, a couple gas pumps, and a diner that probably hasn't changed its menu since the 70s. I parked under the bright fluorescence and stumbled out like I'd been shot out of a cannon, went inside, bought a Coke and a pack of gum I didn't want just to ground myself. The cashier gave me a weird look when I handed him the crumpled bills. Maybe because I was still shaking, or maybe because I looked like I'd seen a ghost back. In the truck, I popped the cap off the Coke and chugged half of it. The burn in my throat helped a little. I just needed to breathe, I told myself. Get my head on straight. Maybe I dozed off at that first rest area without realizing it. Maybe I dreamed the whole damn thing. But when I started the truck again, the digital clock on the dash blinked 3:13 a.m. I'd left the first rest stop around 12:30. That drive should have taken maybe 45 minutes, not nearly 3 hours. So where the hell had the rest of the time gone? I didn't want to sleep anymore. That idea was long gone. I figured I'd drive till sunrise and call in sick to work, say I had a migraine or stomach bug, just make it through the night, just get somewhere with people. But the fog rolled in around mile marker 229, thick as wool. I slowed to 35, hazard lights blinking. Headlights barely punched 5 feet ahead. Everything outside the cab vanished into pale gray. Trees, road signs, even the yellow lines, gone. Then the CB crackled. I hadn't used it all night, hadn't even touched it, but the speaker buzzed to life with a static hum followed by a voice, barely audible, like it was struggling through layers of interference. Come back. Don't look. It repeated. Same words, same broken rhythm. Over and over. Reached up and turned the volume knob. Nothing changed. Tried switching channels, nothing but the same message on a loop. Come back. Don't look. That's when my headlights caught the shoulder. The picnic shelter again. Same one. I don't mean one like it. I mean exactly the same one I'd seen hours ago. Same concrete benches. Same trash can half tipped over. Same little metal sign warning not to feed the wildlife. I hadn't made a wrong turn. I hadn't circled back. But there it was, and someone was sitting at the table again. No face. I didn't stop this time, but I slowed, because the road dipped just past the rest area and curved tight around a cluster of trees. As I passed, I looked. I shouldn't have, but I did. The figure stood up, only this time, it didn't stay put. It took one slow step forward, into the fog. Then another, and then the thing, whatever it was, started walking toward the road. I floored it. My truck's engine groaned as I pushed it hard into the curve. Tires skidded. I barely kept control. Behind me, in the side mirror, I caught a glimpse of movement in the mist. A shape, long-limbed, wrong somehow. Too tall, shoulders bowed, like it didn't know how to wear the body it was in. And then it was gone. 20 minutes later, the fog started thinning. I passed a green county line sign that said Ashgrove. Pop. 8:12, and let myself relax a little. Not safe, not by a long shot, but less hunted. That's how it felt. Like whatever was out there had retreated. Or maybe it had finished whatever it started. I pulled into a trucker lot beside an all-night diner and finally let myself shut off the engine. I didn't sleep, just stared out the windshield until the sun started bleeding over the hills. That's when I saw the note. Folded under, my wiper blade. Yellow legal paper, torn rough, smudged like it had gotten wet, then dried again. It said, "You were supposed to stay." Nothing else. No signature, no explanation, just that one line. I looked around the lot. Only 3 other trucks. Nobody nearby. No movement. But I wasn't imagining it. That note was real. That was 6 months ago. I haven't driven that route since. In fact, I changed jobs completely. Local deliveries only now. Nothing overnight. Nothing outside of town. I keep the truck. Locked, never sleep in it. And I never stop at rest areas anymore, no matter how tired I am. Because sometimes, late at night, the CB will hiss to life on its own again. Same broken whisper. Come back. Don't. Look. And once, I swear to God, I passed my own truck again, parked under a rest stop shelter, empty this time, but the dome light was on, and the driver's side door was open. They never caught the man, I tell people when they ask why I quit long haul, and I still wonder if I was ever really alone out there. I've hauled freight all across the Appalachian stretch for over 2 decades now, seen every kind of weather, driven through dead cell phone zones for hours, and crossed paths with more than my fair share of deer, foxes, and even a confused black bear or 2 wandering across the road. But there's one night, one single run that still clings to the back of my memory, like the scent of diesel on old denim. It happened near Elkhorn City, Kentucky, just past midnight, heading north on a lesser-known back route that cut past what used to be old logging land. The area's always been a little unsettling. The road winds through dense forest, the kind where the trees lean too close, and the moon barely makes it through the canopy. That night was unusually still. Not a single gust of wind or rustle of branches. My radio had gone quiet over an hour earlier. No chatter from other drivers, no static, nothing. Just the steady hum of tires on cracked pavement and the low drone of my engine. I'd been pushing through a long shift trying to make it to Charleston before morning. Around 12:45 a.m., I saw one of those blue state-sponsored rest areas up ahead. Just a small pull-off with 2 picnic tables, a row of vending machines, and a few racks filled with tourist brochures and paper maps under a fluorescent canopy. I wasn't tired exactly, but something about the silence was wearing on me. That kind of quiet makes your thoughts get too loud, so I figured I'd stop for a second, stretch my legs, maybe grab a paper map just to trace the route ahead. Something about a physical map always settles me better than GPS. The place was empty, of course. Most folks don't stop at those little roadside pull-offs unless they absolutely have to. They feel a little forgotten, like they belong to a different decade. The vending machine's flickering light cast a cold, pale glow over the sidewalk. Bugs slapped against the glass. One of the bulbs overhead buzzed with a sickly green tint. I walked up to the map rack, which was wedged between a trash can and a faded Welcome to Pike County sign. Pulled out a tri-fold Kentucky highway map. Looked new enough. It was folded tightly, edges still crisp. I got back in the cab, locked the doors out of habit, and switched on the dome light. Unfolded the map across the steering wheel. That's when I saw it dot my exact route, starting in Elkhorn, moving up Highway 197, cutting across 460, then onto 119, had been traced in red ink. Not a perfect line either. It wobbled slightly like it had been drawn fast with a shaking hand. At the very bottom corner of the map, in small, jittery handwriting, someone had written, "Don't stop again." That was it. I just stared at it. My fingers felt cold. I flipped the map over, checked the back. Nothing. No marks, no smudges, no sign that it was some kind of prank or pre-printed gag. This was a standard tourism map, except for that one red line and that warning. I should have left right then. Crumpled it up, thrown it in the trash, and put the whole thing behind me. But I didn't. I kept staring at the red line, like it would start to make sense if I just stared long enough. Like maybe I could remember dropping the map, or buying it earlier in the day, or even drawing that line myself and forgetting why dot. But I couldn't. Because I'd never seen that map before in my life. Dot something about the way it traced my path so precisely. It felt personal. I opened the door again, stepped back out into the night. The air smelled like damp pine and old rain. The trees around the rest area didn't move, didn't whisper. It felt like the whole forest was holding its breath. I walked back over to the rack, checked the other maps, pulled out 3 more. None of them had any markings. No red ink, just plain old maps. I stood there under that buzzing light, heart thudding harder than I wanted to admit, feeling watched. Not the kind of watched where someone's behind you, but the kind where everything is looking at you. The trees, the dark, the silence. I tossed the extra maps onto the sidewalk and backed away. Fast dot. Back inside the cab, I folded the marked map slowly. My hands were shaking now. I shoved it in the glove box and fired up the engine dot. The radio crackled back to life, but instead of static or a dispatcher's voice, I heard a single note, a whistle. A long, low, warbling whistle. Just one dot, then silence dot. That was it. I killed the radio. I pulled out of that lot faster than I should have, tires kicking gravel, headlights sweeping across the empty benches. As I merged back onto the highway, I checked the rearview mirror. There was someone standing at the edge of the rest area. Not close, not clear. Just a tall figure in dark clothing, half hidden by the shadows near the info board. I could barely make out their outline, but they weren't there a second ago. I was sure of it. And they weren't moving. The road stretched ahead like a vein through the woods. The trees on both sides were so dense the headlights barely made a dent. After 10 minutes, I tried to laugh it off. Told myself it was just a weird coincidence. A drifter, maybe. Some bored teenager messing with maps. I'd sleep it off when I got to Charleston. That worked for a while, until I saw the next rest area. Same setup, same sign, same vending machines. And taped to the front of the map rack, centered neat, almost like it was meant for me, was a torn piece of notebook paper. In that same shaky handwriting. You stopped again. I didn't get out. I didn't slow down. I locked the doors and kept driving. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was rattling the dashboard. I kept moving for nearly 30 miles before I had to stop again. This time for fuel. A well-lit Exxon on the edge of a town called Grundy. Pumped the gas fast, didn't make eye contact with the other drivers. Went inside to grab a drink, hoping the fluorescent lights would wash away the dread clinging to me. The cashier was an older guy. White beard, tired eyes, West Virginia cap. As I swiped my card, he glanced up from the register. "You still driving that northern route tonight?" He asked casually, like he'd known me for years. I froze. I guess, I said slowly. "How'd you know that?" He shrugged. You looked like someone on that line, red ink route. My throat went dry. What do you mean by that? But the man just looked down, closed the drawer, and said, "Don't stop again." I stumbled back to my truck like my boots were full of cement. My hands were numb as I gripped the wheel. I pulled out of the station and merged back onto the highway, not caring where it led, just needing to get away. But 30 minutes later, just past a narrow bridge over a slow creek, I saw something that made my stomach drop through the floor. Another rest area. Same design, same benches, same vending machines. Same map rack. And standing beside it, this time fully in view, was the figure. Tall. Wearing a heavy coat or cloak. Couldn't tell. But what I could see clearly was the object in his hand, a red marker. He lifted it slowly and started circling something on the map. Then, he turned toward me. No face, just a shadow. But I knew what he'd marked. It was my next stop. And I was still 15 minutes away from it. I didn't stop driving. I didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Right for the next 5 miles. Just kept my hands locked on the wheel and eyes on the center line, even as that last rest area disappeared behind me, like a bad dream trying to hitch a ride. But it wasn't a dream. I know what I saw. That man, thing, whatever the hell it was. It knew where I was going. It had circled the next stop just like the last, and I had 10 minutes before I'd be there. Unless I turned off, found another route, killed the lights, and reversed course entirely. But that was the problem. I didn't know the back roads around there. This part of eastern Kentucky was full of one-way logging trails and dirt roads that led nowhere. If I turned off, I might break down, or worse, end up in a place no one would find me. So I made the choice. I was going to blow past the next rest stop doing 70 and never look back. The rain started again around the 7-minute mark. A cold, slanting drizzle that made the wiper squeak even on low. The road ahead shimmered with glare, but I could already make out the pale blue glow of the approaching rest area sign. Rest area. 1 mile. My jaw clenched. My grip tightened. I glanced in the mirror. Nothing behind me but the curve of empty road. I pushed harder on the gas. The headlights cut through another bend in the trees, and then I saw it. Just like before. Same damn layout. Concrete canopy. Twin vending machines humming under the shelter. A glint of metal from the map rack catching the rain. And someone was standing there. Not beside the rack this time. On the road itself. Right at the entrance. Just waiting. I swerved. Didn't even think, just jerked the wheel hard and blew past the turnoff, tires squealing as I fought to keep control. The trailer fishtailed slightly, but I held it. White knuckles. Adrenaline screaming through my chest like jet fuel. Caught one last glance in the side mirror as I sped past. He was still there. Standing still. Arms at his sides. But now I could see something new. There was more than one. Two. Other figures had appeared. One on each side of the map rack. All 3 of them watching me go. No reaction, just those silhouettes in the rain like they were part of the road itself. I drove for another hour, straight through to the state line. By then, the sky had started to lighten in the east, and I could feel myself crashing from the adrenaline. I pulled into a Love's truck stop right near the border and parked under the floodlights, where dozens of other trucks were already lined up. This time, I wasn't alone. I saw people fueling up, heard doors slamming. Distant laughter from a guy on the phone near Pump 6. The normal sounds of night shift drivers trying to keep the world running. It was the first time in hours that I didn't feel like prey. I got out and went inside. Grabbed a coffee, tried to calm my nerves, told myself it was over. Maybe some backwoods prank, or maybe I'd just been too tired and my mind started screwing with me. Highway paranoia. Long-haul drivers deal with that sometimes. I've heard stories. I was halfway through a cinnamon roll when I noticed a corkboard by the restroom door. It was full of lost pet flyers, job postings, and community notices. But dead center, pinned carefully with 2 thumbtacks. was a folded highway map. The same kind I'd picked up earlier. And drawn in red ink, fresh, still smudged from a wet finger, was my new route north. It traced all the way to Charleston. At the bottom, we said don't stop again. I went cold, all over. The map fluttered slightly under the AC vent. I turned and scanned the small crowd inside the store. No one looked my way. Just a cashier humming to herself, and two drivers arguing about toll booths in Ohio. I walked outside without buying anything else, coffee still clutched in my hand. Back in the cab, I opened the glove box and pulled out the first map. Laid it on the dash beside the new one I'd just taken off the corkboard. They matched perfectly. Same red line. Same handwriting. Except the newest one had one more circle. A gas station. The one I was sitting at. I floored it out of there without even securing my coffee cup. It spilled across the floor, but I didn't care. I needed out. Away from wherever this trail was leading, I took the next exit. Blindly. Didn't check where it led. I figured any town, any diner, any motel would be safer than another state-run stop. The exit led me to a place called Meadows Gap. A quiet little crossroads town with a diner that looked straight out of 1965 and a motel where the vacancy sign flickered like it was tired of working. I pulled into the gravel lot and sat in the truck for a few minutes. Engine off. Just listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No radios. No whispers. Still comma. I checked my windows twice before going in. The front desk clerk was a younger guy. Friendly but distracted. Said he'd just taken over for the night shift and hadn't seen another guest in hours. Room 4's probably your best bet, he said. Closest to the parking lot. You can see your rig from the window. Perfect. I paid in cash. Inside the room, I deadbolted the door and sat on the edge of the bed with the maps laid out in front of me. I don't know why. I did it, but I traced the red line again with my finger. Just slowly. Like maybe I'd missed something. That's when I noticed one of the circles wasn't on a rest area, or a gas station, or a scenic overlook. It was over a random patch of back road, right outside Meadows Gap. Less than a mile. From where I was sitting, I heard the knock at 3:17 a.m. 3 soft raps. Then nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Just silence. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. My back was pressed to the headboard and my eyes locked on the door. Another knock. This one louder. I eased off the bed and crept to the window, slowly peeled back the curtain an inch. Nothing outside. Just my truck. And the empty lot. And the wind rustling a plastic bag near the curb. But then I looked down. At the base of the door on the inside, something had been slid under, a folded piece of map paper. I picked it up, hand trembling. Unfolded it. No red line this time. Just one sentence scrawled across the whole width of the map in that same shaky hand. We travel with you now. I left that motel at dawn and didn't stop driving until I crossed into Pennsylvania. Didn't even blink at rest stops. Didn't acknowledge the blue signs or vending machines or friendly info boards with smiling cartoon raccoons pointing out local caverns. And even now, months later, I don't stop. Ever. I plan my route like a man escaping something. And I don't care if I'm running low on fuel or my legs are cramping. If I have to piss, I do it on the side of the road. Because I know now. It wasn't just about stopping. It was about being seen. I haven't found another marked map since. But sometimes, late at night, I'll glance in my side mirror and swear I catch a glimpse of red ink, just a flash, on one of the old road signs, like a reminder, or a warning. That they're still there. Following.